I'm opening up the mailbag, answering your questions. What will happen if the Marlins don't add this offseason? I'm going to break it all down on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I'm a diehard Marlins fan, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. You can find me on Twitter at Jeremiah Geiger2, and thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So last week, guys, I posted on Twitter, drop your questions. I'm going to do a mailbag episode. And then Thursday, we had the Cade Gibson interview. So if you haven't watched that or listened to that already, pretty interesting stuff. Great conversation with Cade, Marlins relief pitcher. Go listen to that if you haven't already. And I wanted to do a mailbag episode that Friday, but I had an early flight. I was going to Nashville for the weekend, so I wasn't able to record at all on Friday. I think I got to the airport at like 5:30 a.m., something like that. Came back Monday, and with the air traffic controller, the delays and all this, it was a whole fiasco. I had to rebook a new flight because I was going to miss a connecting flight. But anyway, I made it back home safe, just super late. So there wasn't any episode on Monday. And, so we got to go hard. We got to go hard this week. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot of work to do here on Locked On Marlins. And that starts by finally doing this mailbag episode. So thank you guys for everyone who submitted questions. We're going to talk about all of them. I have some good topics that you guys brought up. So let's get right into it. The first question comes from the founder of Fish on First. Great stuff. He listens to the show a lot. Eli Sussman. He's on the show. He's made appearances here on Locked On Marlins. Great guy. First off, follow what Fish on First does. They're working nonstop throughout the season, throughout the offseason. But Eli asked this question. He said, how many games do you think the Marlins would win next year if they made 0 offseason moves and only used players currently in the organization? Great topic, and I can't wait to get into this. So if you're an everyday listener, if you've been around, you're not a new listener, you know how I feel about this offseason. I think the Marlins need to take some serious action. They need to make some moves in order to compete in 2026. Essentially, they can't run it back next season with the same roster intact and expect to improve upon a 79-win team. I don't think you can do that. This is a topic for another time, but regression. Will the Marlins regress? What players are in danger of regression? There's no guarantee, number one, that everyone stays healthy. Number two, that everyone replicates the level of success that they had from this past year. So regression is a possibility. And I think when you've established a young core, and the Marlins have, to a degree, Kyle Stowers, Augustin Ramirez, Otto Lopez, then once you've done that, there comes a point when you have to decide as an organization, now's our chance. Now our window has opened, so let's supplement the roster. You don't have to spend money like the Angels do, and just give out huge lucrative contracts to aging veterans and try to spend your way to a championship, because unless you're the LA Dodgers, that doesn't work. And the Dodgers' level of spending is something that the Marlins will never, ever conceivably achieve, nor should they. That's just a different organization. And very easily they could have lost Game 7. That Game 7 between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers, all-time classic. 9th inning, Miguel Rojas, former Marlin, postseason hero. But for the Marlins, when your window opens and your opportunity arises for a competitive chance, you have an opportunity. You're not, let's say, the Rockies, where before the season, I think 99.9% of people are going to tell you the Rockies won't be good. With the Marlins, how confident are you that if they make a couple moves here and there and address some positions of need, they could be good? But the question is this: what if they don't do any of that? Do I think they're going to have the same level of success or improve on 2025 if they only use players currently in the organization? No, I don't. I think if the Marlins, for whatever reason, decided, you know what, we're going to run it back, we're going to keep everybody in our organization, we're not going to spend in free agency, we're going to make the second largest weight room in baseball the first largest weight room in baseball, but we're not going to spend money, we're not going to make any trades, we're going to rock with what we got. That includes guys in the minor leagues, guys currently in the major leagues, but nobody from outside the organization. If I had to put a number on how many games the Marlins would win, I would say 71. 71 and 91. I think there would be a level of regression. Because ultimately, the Marlins' 25 season was very fun. It was a great year to be a fan. They got really, really hot for an extended period of time from late June up until or mid-June till August, and that kept them in the race, and then they fell out of it, and then they climbed back into the race before coming up just short. What I'm worried about, though, is let's say Kyle Stowers has regression at all. He doesn't replicate that first half of success. Maybe he struggles a little bit. Maybe Agustin Ramirez and his defense just never takes that step forward. Edward Cabrera struggles with command a little bit more. There's a lot of variables here that could influence the Marlins winning and losing either more or less than a season ago. If everyone is in the organization outperforms their 2025 and Kyle Stowers suddenly turns into a legit MVP candidate, which I think he can, he's got some work to do. We're going to talk about him later in the show. And Agustin Ramirez is more consistent at the plate, hits 250, 260, and rips 30 bombs. Griffin Conine stays healthy. Edward Cabrera and Sandy Alcantara both stay in the organization and then replicate for Sandy the second half of 2025, that success he found in the back half of last season. Edward Cabrera replicates his 2025 and establishes himself as a bona fide ace. Let's see here. Otto Lopez takes a step forward with the bat. Xavier Edwards proves to be more consistent. My point being, if the existing core, if the existing roster all takes a step forward, then this team can win 83, 84 games. Maybe a little more. I don't know. I would say low 80s. If they take a step backward, they're probably finishing in the low 70s, probably 71 to 75 range. They're not really taking a step forward. They won 79 when they did get lucky. When, some things broke their way at times, and they have the Pythagorean record and they're scoring 1-run games and all this. Ultimately, you finish with 79 wins. If you don't make any other moves and there's progression, then optimistically, maybe you replicate that. Maybe you get a few more wins. But chances are you're not going to get huge jumps in production from everybody. Injuries happen, and that's why I would say the Marlins would take a step back. I said 71 wins. I'll change it. I'll say 70, 75. 75 wins. That sounds like, take away 4 wins from this previous season. That's why you have to add guys. You have to add to the roster. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the play style for the Marlins in 2026. What were their identity last season? What will their identity be this season? I'm going to break that down right after this. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. You got queues, login screens, prices jumping out at you at the checkout like a Halloween ghost that you didn't expect, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to pay that money. Buying tickets can be frustrating. So that's why there's Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime's fast. It's easy. It's backed by the Gametime guarantee, and you'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. If you pull up Gametime, just a couple of taps, you will see amazing deals. Your favorite NFL teams, their games as low as $100. The app's super simple. You can see the exact view from your seat before you buy. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's less stressful than any other way of buying tickets. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. I appreciate all the everyday Locked On Marlins listeners. Can't do this without you guys. Share the podcast with your friends. This offseason is now officially in full swing. The World Series has ended. Dodgers over the Blue Jays in 7. I had the Blue Jays over the Dodgers in 7. But we're continuing this mailbag episode. Victor, fan of the show, he says, what play style do you want to see from the Marlins next year? So first off, what identity did the Marlins have a season ago? And what I mean by that is, there's some teams that have a certain identity in the way they win baseball games and the way they try to win baseball games. For example, small ball. You're going to have teams that they steal, they bunt, they bunt to get runners in scoring position. They don't have a ton of sluggers, but they're gritty. They get on base. They create havoc for opposing defenses. And when you put the ball in play, good things happen. They play sound defense, and they win a lot of games. Then you have teams like, I don't know, the Braves from a few years ago. They just hit home run after home run after home run. They got sluggers. That team wins games because of their offense, and it's very clear and obvious. They're not going to wait around for, a sacrifice bunt, get the runner to third base. No. You get a runner on, maybe you draw a walk, it's a 3-run jack, you're up 3-0. That's the type of offense. That's their identity. Then I think you have teams like where offensively it's kind of whatever, but the strength of their team is that pitching staff. And the whole thing is, no matter how many games you end up winning in the regular season, if you get to the playoffs and you have to deal with them for a 5-game series in the division series, you're not going to want to face their 1, 2, 3 starter because those guys are really good. The rotation is the strength of the team. The pitching staff is the strength of the team. So for the Marlins in 2025, it's kind of hard to say what their identity was, what their play style was. They ultimately finished with 79 wins. Their bullpen was okay. Their pitching staff, their rotation was okay. Their offense didn't have a ton of power, but it also didn't have that small ball feel to it. I'm not really sure the Marlins had a clear identity. So in 2026, what will it be? Now, the way the Marlins played the game, they played with grit. They played with a lot of heart. This was a team that believed in themselves, that were trying to prove themselves and establish themselves at the major league level. Think of Jacob Marcy, Otto Lopez, his second year after being claimed from the Giants off of waivers. Agustin Ramirez, his rookie season. Rule 5 draft pick, Liam Hicks. Edward Cabrera, arguably on his final chance to prove he can be a starter. Sandy, coming back off of Tommy John surgery. This was a prove-it mode for the Marlins in 25. And I think that's where you saw that grit and that heart really come into play. But in 2026, I think we're going to see a identity take place. And that is the strength of this team lies in the rotation. It lies in the pitching staff. The Marlins are a pitching factory. I've said this many times on this show. This is where you look at your depth and you say, this is a very good problem to have. It's not a problem at all. In fact, it's a benefit to this organization. Braxton Garrett's back. Jansen Junk coming off of a season in which he walked like 13 batters in over 100 innings. Robbie Snelling is major league ready. Thomas White is knocking on the door. This is going to be the second season for Sandy Alcantara away from Tommy John surgery. Same with Yuri Perez. Edward Cabrera looked like an ace this past season. This starting rotation is deep, it's talented, and it's going to be the focal point of the Marlins' identity in 2026. That's going to be their play style, Victor. It's going to be our guys that we're throwing 1 through 5 are better than yours, and they're going to win us games. And then we're going to take an extended step forward with the offense. That's the key. Pitch well, do just enough on offense with above average power in order to win games. I'd love that to be the Marlins' identity in 2026. If you can sign a slugger, if you can sign someone that provides some juice at first base, if Kyle Stowers and Agustin Ramirez continue bringing the juice, if Joe Mack comes up and showcases the power that he has, Conine stays healthy, who I think Griffin Conine can be a 30 home run a year player in the major leagues if everything clicks and he's on the field. I think the Marlins are going to be in a really good spot because that rotation's deep. It's talented. It has reinforcements in the minor leagues. And you supplement that with a lineup that can give you some power. Maybe not, 3 guys over 30 homers, but maybe Stowers approaches 30. Maybe Conine approaches 30. Augustin's at 25. This team could have some thump to it, this lineup. Who knows? Maybe they do get 3 guys over 30 homers. You never know. It would take an increased level of production, and it would take staying healthy. I think it would take signing a slugger. I'm looking at you, Josh Naylor. We'll see what they do. But yeah, that should be the identity of this team. It lies in their pitching, and then their lineup supplements the pitching staff. The lineup can't be in a position anymore to lose, to be the reason why the Marlins are 10, 15 games under 500. Can't be it. You have enough players that I feel confident about. Now you just supplement the lineup. Now, this doesn't allow for injuries, of course. This doesn't account for injuries. And if injuries happen to this lineup and you haven't supplemented it, you haven't signed a guy that can help take the load off Kyle Stowers or Agustin Ramirez, then things could get dicey. And injuries happen, they're always a part of the game. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I can't wait to see what the Marlins do. Kyle Stowers, in particular, he was nominated for a Silver Slugger Award. We're going to talk about Kyle Stowers, his Silver Slugger nomination, and also just the expectations for him coming off of a great 2025. That's coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both sports, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including states like California, Texas, and Georgia. You can pick your favorite players with the NFL in the NBA and see how your predictions pay out. And they have a couple of new features, which I think are awesome. Stacks feature, you can pick more on, for example, Steph Curry, his points, his threes, and assists in the same lineup. And you also have an injury reboot feature. If one of your guys leaves with an injury, it saves your lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Appreciate everybody tuning into this mailbag episode. Remember, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. So if you're listening to the show, hit follow, share the podcast with your friends. Kyle Stowers, coming off of a great season. I mean, he was left for dead, essentially, after 2024. Came over from Baltimore, just looked completely overmatched at the plate. And there were no expectations involving Stowers to be productive for the Marlins in any meaningful way last season. And he came in and from opening day defied the odds, defied the expectations, and proved that, you know what, this guy, he's really, really good. Out of nowhere. Came absolutely out of nowhere. Hit 288, slugged 544, an OPS of 912, 25 bombs, and he was injured the last month and a half of the season. So for Kyle Stowers, he was nominated to a Silver Slugger Award. Will he win it necessarily? You know, of course, I'd love to see Kyle Stowers win the Silver Slugger, and that's going to be coming up in just a couple of days, November 6th to November 7th. The competition he's going to have Corbin Carroll, Pete Crow Armstrong, Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker, and James Wood. I think it's 3 of those guys will win it. I look at the Silver Slugger sometimes as a popularity. I look at all awards as a popularity contest to an extent. What hurts Stowers' chances is that he was injured the second part of the second half. You know, there was a chance he would come back, and then he never did. He got re-injured in his rehab assignment. So to answer Will and his question, because he said, what are Kyle Stowers' chances at winning the Silver Slugger? I'm going to say they're minimal. I don't expect Stowers to win it. I'm glad he was named a finalist, but there's some other names on there that had really good years. You look at Corbin Carroll, Kyle Tucker, and then even Pete Crow Armstrong, who's a very popular player in his own right. The Marlins, Kyle Stowers, it's going to be hard. It's going to be an uphill battle for him to actually secure the hardware. But I'm looking at Stowers and what he did last season, and it was great. But it's got me excited because I think there's more room for him to improve as a baseball player, especially as a hitter. And the main thing that I look at is yes, he hits the ball hard. Yes, he's got elite bat speed. Pretty much all of his numbers across the board are really good to elite. There's one, not flaw, but part of his game that he can improve on. And part of that is this is built into his offensive profile. But also, I think he can lower these numbers and become even more efficient. And that's his whiff rate, his chase rate, and ultimately his strikeout rate. So a season ago, he was in the 6th percentile in whiff percentage, whiffed 32.5% of the time. Chased 28% of the time. So that's right about average. So he's not chasing a ton, but it could get better. You'd like to see him be a little more selective at the plate. And then you have the strikeout rate. Struck out 27% of the time. That was in the 10th percentile. So he sees a pitch. He's going to take a big old hack at it. And sometimes he comes up empty. Sometimes that leads to strikeouts. Sometimes it leads to 5 for 5 days like he did in Baltimore, where he homered 3 times against his former team, his former organization. And that's great. If Stowers can do the same thing and, he stays healthy and in 26 he finishes with a 910 OPS again, I will take that 7 days out of 7, every day of the week, whatever you want to say. Twice on Sunday. I think that's going to be a great production we're going to get from Kyle Stowers if he has a 910 OPS, 30 bombs, 25 bombs, whatever it is. But my point being is if he can look at that strikeout rate, that whiff rate, and just be a little bit more selective, if he can get a little bit better at fouling off a tough 2-strike pitch, being more bat-to-ball oriented instead of just taking these mighty hacks. And he can bring that whiff rate to, 25, 26%. Then he's going to be a better player overall. And that's my point with this. There's room to improve with Kyle Stowers. As good as he's been and as great as his offensive profile is, imagine how much more better he would be if he didn't whiff over 30% of the time. That's got me excited. And I know he knows that. I know that's something that the organization can work on in this offseason. So I'm excited for what Stowers is going to do for an encore to this remarkable 2025 season. It's going to be exciting. We have the winter meetings coming up. Dominicus asks, what, if anything, can we expect the Marlins to do during the upcoming winter baseball meetings? I think the Marlins are going to, I think they're going to make a trade. I don't know who, but I know Peter Bendix likes to be active in the trade market. So to answer your question, I think we're going to see a trade, maybe 2, at the winter meetings. I could be wrong, but I do think this team's going to be active in some capacity this offseason. The World Series just ended, but the grind never stops. I think this team's window is open now. They have to supplement the roster. They can't stand pat because you risk players' regression. And I'm not saying that's my expectation, but it's a possibility. And very rarely does everything break right for a team. 162 games is a long, long season. Guys get hurt. Guys hit cold spells. You'll lose 1-run games. That's why once you have your core, you start supplementing the roster. We're going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Until next time, stay safe, stay locked on. For your next watch or listen, go check out Locked On MLB over on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your pods as well. Shout out to Soli over there, who's the host of Locked On MLB. So stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.